Hello everyone and welcome to my Laravel testing course. In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to write fast, reliable, and maintainable tests for your Laravel applications using Pest framework. This course is fully hands-on. We will start with several slides and understand what is testing, why it is necessary, or what type of tests there exist. After this, we're going to create Laravel project and write our first tests. In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to write unit tests, feature tests, as well as browser tests. How to test authentication part, databases, models, what are datasets, and how to configure hooks. We're going to get familiar with Pest configuration. We're going to also learn how to write snapshot and visual regression tests, where we take the screenshots and compare it to the previous stable version. We're going to have a look at the device emulation as well, and we're going to write tests for APIs as well. We're going to learn how to filter, group, and structure our tests. In a nutshell, we will learn all the fundamental things you need to know to get started with testing. And finally, we will take a real project and create real tests for this project. And at the end of this tutorial, we're going to use continuous integration and deploy our project on a production-ready environment where whenever you push something, our written tests are executed and the deployment will only happen if all tests are passed. All code written in this tutorial is open source and the necessary links will be available in the video description. Before we start, I want to ask you to hit the like and subscribe because that really helps me to keep creating such type of content. At the end, as I mentioned, we're going to deploy this project on production environment, assign custom domain to it, and set up automatic deployment where tests are running. As a choice of the hosting provider, we're going to use Hostinger's shared hosting, which is also sponsoring this video. In my opinion, Hostinger's shared hosting is the best and the most affordable hosting option out there. Go to the website hostinger.com/thecodeholic. They always have some sort of discount, which gives you ability to get the hosting as low as $3 per month, which is ridiculously low compared to what value you're gonna get with that price. Each hosting option gives you ability to create more than one website, you have domain for 1 year, and you have a bunch of other advantages. Choose whichever option is the best for you. Then you can adjust your business web hosting period. The most reasonable is probably 1 year, but the biggest discount you're gonna get if you choose biggest period. If you decide to get the hosting, use a coupon code TheCodeholic and you will get extra 10% off. Now let's focus on the course, and at the end we're going to use this hosting to deploy our project on custom domain, on production environment, and we're going to set up automatic deployment as well where tests are running before they are deployed to the server. First, let's understand what is software testing. Software testing is a systematic process of verifying that your application works correctly and behaves the way you expect it to behave. Testing ensures that features continue to work as intended even after months of development, major refactoring, or team changes. Here are 3 main reasons why testing is necessary. To verify your code performs exactly as designed under various conditions and edge cases. To catch bugs during development before they even reach to your users. And to make changes confidently, knowing tests will alert you to any unintended consequences. Let's make this specific to Laravel developers. In Laravel, when you have tests written for your project and you make some changes, it automatically can detect that new code breaks some existing functionality and eliminate that and report this to you. It can save your development time, knowing that you have something which already tests your application. You don't need to test it. It runs the entire test suite instantly instead of manually testing features repeatedly. It gives you ability to safely refactor the code of your project. Knowing if something is broken, test will catch it. It gives you ability to build and deploy without a fear, knowing your comprehensive test coverage has your back. And finally, everything comes down to deliver your project in high quality, to ship features that works in various cases and that keeps working over time when new features are added. There are 4 types of automated tests. Unit tests, which has the main purpose to test isolated logic of your project. Typically, unit tests test a specific method or specific class. It is fast and focused on no database, no HTTP dependencies, just plain logic. We have feature tests, which test the entire user-facing workflows, including roles, controllers, middlewares, models, database interactions, and views. These simulate real application behavior. We have also integration tests to verify how multiple systems work together, how they interact, how they share data. And we have browser tests, which simulate how actual user behaves in your actual real browser, such as clicking on the buttons, typing, form submissions, and complex UI workflows. Pest 4, which we're going to cover in this course, makes this remarkably simple. Now, let me give you a couple of differences between manual testing and automated testing. Manual testing is time intensive. It requires dedicated human to test every feature when it's developed, plus you're going to retest all previous features if you make some changes in the code that might be connected to the previous feature. You get inconsistent results in case of manual testing. Manual testing is also error-prone. It's easy to miss subtle bugs or forget to test specific scenario under time pressure, and you have to do repetitive work. Same manual steps must be performed again and again and again for every code change. In case of automated testing, it is lightning fast. Execute hundreds of thousands of tests in seconds with a single comment. You are perfectly consistent. Tests run identically every time, following exact same steps without variation. You have comprehensive coverage, meaning never forget steps, never skip checks. Automated tests always verify everything, and continuous validation to run your tests on every commit, pull request, or deployment workflows inside CI/CD pipelines. That changes your deployment way. Once you have written those automated tests, they continue working for you throughout the entire project lifetime and reducing time and effort for you in this project. Now, what makes a test good test? When it is clear and easily readable. When it is focused on one thing, not multiple things. When it is deterministic. Tests must produce every time they execute them the same result. No randomness, no dependencies on external APIs or current date, time, or some other information. Always produce the same result in the same circumstances. Tests must be fast, and tests should be meaningful as well. If you have a look just the test cases, what you have written for your application, you should have good understanding what your project does. Laravel provides an exceptional out-of-the-box solution for testing, making it one of the most developer-friendly PHP frameworks for building robust test suites. Everything you need is included and thoughtfully designed to make testing feel natural and intuitive. It has well-organized test structure inside test folder. You have dedicated test environment if you want so. You can create .env.testing and just configure the database or some other parameters only for testing. You can have automated database management as well, and Laravel provides really helpful testing utilities for HTTP requests such as GET, POST, to act as an authenticated user, to validate, to interact with JSON APIs, and so on. Now I think it's time to open the code editor and create our first test. Now let's create new Laravel project and have a look at testing. First, I'm going to execute Laravel new, Laravel testing course. I'm going to choose React Starter Kit because it really doesn't matter, but I'm going to make this a more advanced type of application where we have this single page application with React and Laravel. So I'm going to choose React. I'm going to stick with Laravel's built-in authentication, and I'm going to choose Pest as the testing framework. Let me give you a quick explanation. What's the difference between Pest and PHP Unit? PHP Unit is old and it is the core of the testing. Pest is built on top of PHP Unit and it gives more elegant and nicer syntax to work with testing. And Pest 4 has additional great features which makes it super nice to work with. So we're going to choose Pest. I'm going to choose no here and let's wait until the project is created. I open the project using PHP Storm. Then we're going to bring up terminal and we're going to execute PHP artisan test. This is the one way to execute tests. And as you can see, all 41 tests are passed. Or we can also execute vendor bean pest. These tests are located under tests folder, and let's have a quick look. So we have Pest PHP, which is the configuration file for tests, and we have then unit tests inside the unit folder. And at the moment we don't have unit tests. Actually, we have only one example test, and we have feature tests. All the tests what have been run right now are feature tests at the moment. So we have this example test, and then we have the dashboard test, and some tests related to settings and auth as well. And each file also contains several tests inside. All right, so this is the structure. We have tests folder, we have Pest PHP, and we have feature and unit. And inside, we're going to create all the tests. I'm just going to go these tests and just explore them. Instead, I'm going to simply delete all files from unit as well as from feature, because we're going to create them manually. Now, let's bring up terminal. And if we execute vendor bean pest right now, we see no tests found. Or I'm going to stick with PHP artisan test. But before I execute this, I'm going to type PHP artisan test list, which is going to give us actually column list. There are no comments defined in the test namespace, so there's nothing. However, if we execute PHP artisan make colon test -- help, then we are going to see several flags associated to this. So if we want to create new test file, we have to execute make test, then provide the test name, and additionally we have options to create a unit test, to create a pest test, which is the default one, to create PHP unit test. And we're going to talk about the differences between the pest and PHP unit test syntax right now. So I'm going to show you both examples, and we have a couple of options. First, let's start with pest, and I'm going to create new test. Let's call this test, or let's call this sample test. Okay, sample test was created. We can open this inside test folder, feature. By default it created feature test, and if we click on this, this is the feature test. We are testing certain thing, and we are going to give it a proper description. For example, should open homepage and it works. So in this case, we're accessing the homepage of the application, we're getting the response, and we're checking if that response has a status code 200. It means our application is good and it is working. All right, so we can bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test or vendor bean pest. Let me actually execute PHP artisan test. Now we're going to see that one simple test has been passed. It should open homepage and it works. Now let's create unit test. PHP artisan make test sample test, but let's call this -- let's give it flag -- unit. We're going to hit the enter. Now we're going to see that sample test is created inside tests unit folder. Let's open and have a look. Now this is the unit test. The purpose of the unit test is to test a certain functionality. In most cases, it should test some heavy logic, some method or classes in your application. It is not integration or feature test, meaning it is not making requests into the application. So this is a very simple test. It expects that certain value to be true. All right, now let's bring terminal and execute PHP artisan test again. Now we're going to see both tests are passing. This is the unit test. This is the feature test. Now this, in both cases, we have seen the unit test as well as the feature test, but the syntax is pest. So we are using pest, but as I mentioned, pest is being built on top of PHP unit. So if you open Composer JSON right now, we're going to see that we have pest here. We have Pest PHP and Pest plugin Laravel. Pest, by the way, is a standalone package which is for testing PHP applications, but it's is developed by Nuno Maduro, which is the core member of Laravel team, and he also developed this Pest plugin Laravel, and Pest works great with Laravel. But the thing is that if we open right now Composer log file, and if we search for pest PHP / pest, we're going to find that here it is. So this is the package installed, and inside its dependencies, there's this PHP unit. So internally, it is still using PHP unit. Just it is a wrapper with a nicer syntax, more intuitive in my opinion as well, and you write much less code as well. Now, let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan make test. Let's call this make test 2 here, and we're going to provide a flag. By default, we know that this is going to create pest feature test, right? Now, let's provide flag called --php unit. Now, this is going to create this class in a PHP unit syntax. If we open right now this inside test folder, feature, sample test 2, we're going to see that this is a class. This is a typical object-oriented way of testing your applications. It is a class, it extends this test case, it has this test example. That example is the same text you would give to your feature test right here inside this test. So in our case, we should call this it should underscore open home page and it works. So this is how we would name the method. Now let's open terminal and execute PHP artisan test and have a look. Now all tests are running. Where is this sample test 2? Actually, it should end with a test. That's why it wasn't executed. We're going to call this sample 2 test. Sample 2 test, and we have to rename it. Apologies. Sample 2 test. Okay, let's rename this. Now it was renamed as a file as well. Now let's execute PHP artisan test, and we're going to see 3 tests passed, and we see these 2 tests are kind of identical. So this is coming from this sample 2 test, and this is coming from the sample test. This is the PHP unit syntax. This is pest syntax, and this is a typical unit test. Now let's create a new test in PHP unit syntax, which is going to be unit test. We're going to execute PHP artisan make test. Let's call this sample 2 test again. We want PHP unit syntax and we want unit test, not feature test anymore. Now it created this file inside unit folder again. Let's go inside unit folder, open this, and it looks very similar to what we have already seen right here. Just the assertion way how we check some values is different. So in this case, we're using expectations API. We expect something to be something. But in this case, we are using in PHP unit, we are using assertions API. We assert this value to be true. So PHP unit, this one, only supports assertions API. It doesn't support expectations API. But pest actually supports both. So we can take this code, this assert true equals true, and we can put this here. We can comment out this part and we can execute tests again, and we're going to see that it works as well. So 2 unit tests are executed, 2 feature tests are executed. So that's why I personally like writing pest syntax, because this is the same as this, and we don't need to create the class and everything. And also naming is like very, very inconvenient in your PHP unit way. So in this case, we can just write it checks that the value is true, right? So we save this, execute this, but in this case, we have to give it a name with underscores. Let's talk a little bit about configuration of our tests, or how we can change the database or some environment variables specifically for tests. All tests by default are using PHP unit.xml file if the test needs the database. So here we have these environment variables, the env is testing, we have this maintenance driver to be file, and all the other things, and the DB connection is SQLite, and the database is in a memory database. So whenever we execute the test, it is going to do all the things inside the memory, create migrations and everything, and then the memory is gone, basically, once the test is finished. If we comment out this part and execute our tests, and our tests are using database, those tests will be executed on our primary database, what we have written inside .en file. If we don't want that, we also have ability to create env.testing file exclusively for the environment variables that is specific for testing. So in this case, we can delete everything from here, let's say, and we can only leave DB connection related information. We can specify the database connection to be SQLite and DB database to be in memory as well. So we also have that flexibility. Or if you want to override a specific environment variable from the default env, you can do this from here as well. Let's say you want to change the mailer to be log instead of some SMTP. So all that is possible through this env.testing file. From this phpunit.xml file, we also have ability to customize the directories for unit tests as well as for feature tests. As you can see, by default, we have the unit tests are created inside tests unit and feature tests are inside tests feature. So you can customize this if you want. Now let's close these two files and let's go inside. Actually, I'm going to close this. I'm going to delete this en testing as well, because I prefer it to be using the settings what I have defined right here, and I'm going to uncomment this part as well. Okay, now let's go inside test folder and open pest.php. So this is the main configuration file for Pest. From here we can decide in which browser by default the test should be run, what configuration options it should have by default, and so on. So if you have a look right here, all tests are extending tests test case. And also it uses refresh database class every time, which means that every time we execute the test, it is gonna just refresh the entire database, drop, create migrations, and then it is gonna run them inside features. Okay, all tests are basically, all feature tests will be inside feature target, so called this. As an example, here we have extended expectations and added a new expectations method to be one. So using this way, we have ability to define custom expectations here. As an example, let's write, I'm going to actually paste this. I think it's going to be easier and I will explain this. So to be UUID as an example. So we are defining new expectations method where this value needs to match the UID. And that's it. So whatever is returned from here, true or false, it's going to be tested, and we can use this to be UUID inside our tests. Additionally, I'm going to do this right here. We have ability to customize certain things globally, such as I'm going to call Pest browser, and let's say that we want to run this always in Firefox. So we can do this in the following way. Of course, we have other browsers such as in Safari, in Chrome, and so on. We also have ability to customize the global timeout. By default, Pest is waiting for several seconds, I think 5 seconds, until the element gets visible in the browser to decide if the test is failed or not. And we have flexibility for this. We can provide different number here, let's say 10,000 milliseconds, 10 seconds, and based on that, now Pest is going to wait a little bit more. We also have ability to provide a global user agent to all tests, what we execute right here. And I think that might be helpful in certain cases. Now, I'm going to delete all feature tests and sample2 unit test as well. And I'm going to leave only this sample test. And we're going to understand how we're going to work with expectations API and what expectations are available. As I mentioned, Pest replaces the assertions API with expectations. It doesn't actually replace, assertions is still there, it still works, but expectations API is more flexible and more readable in my opinion as well. I'm going to remove this assert true. Okay, expect something. that something can be an object, can be number, can be string, it can be anything. So let's specify expect 5 as an example. And then it gives us the object which has a lot of functions, like expect 5 to be something, as an example, to be 5. So we expect some number, and that number might be received from database, from some APIs. Let's say that is a number which our math class gave us, and we expect that number to be 3.14. Let's say this is a pi, right? So pi equals 3.14, and then we expect that pi, which is, by the way, received from some math class, to be 3.14. So once we execute this, we're going to see that test is passing. If for some reason that function or class or whatever is returning result from a function or from a class. Okay, so if for some reason that class doesn't work properly and returns something else, then our test will fail, right? So this to be something is just one example, but we have a lot of expectations, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have some of the most common ones, such as to be a string as an example. So we expect, as an example here, Zura to be string. We can specify that Zura must be string, it must contain, and we can chain also to contain Z inside there. So let's remove this pi from here. Now, if we execute the following test, we're going to see that it is passing. And we have two assertions as well. One assertion is that it needs to be string, and second assertion is that it should contain Z inside. I'm going to open Pest expectations documentation page, and here we're going to see everything that is possible. All right, so if we scroll down below, we have this to be array, to be between, and I'm not going to read all of them, obviously, but I encourage you to have a look and understand what expectations are available, because that expectations define how easily you can write tests. As an example, you might get an array and you expect that array to have exactly 3 elements inside there to have count 3. And we also can negate our expectation. As an example, we can expect Zura to be string, to contain Z, and then we can chain not to contain lowercase z. As an example, we expect it to be uppercase C. So if we execute this, now we're going to see test is passing. Well, now we have 3 assertions. We can also chain to, because we already use not here, we don't need not anymore. So we negated the entire operator, entire expectations, and then to be integer, as an example. So we expect that not to contain z and not to be integer. If we execute this, oh, actually, it's my bad. So we need this not to contain and not to be integer. Now we see 4 assertions are passing. We need to use this not before every assertion. Now let's see another example. I'm going to use expect and provide array here. Let's say we have 3 elements inside array 1, 2, and 3. And then we expect to be array. That's one assertion. Second is that it to have count of 3. And I also want to check that it should contain element 2. Now, why do I see this? Multiple expectations can be chained together. That's PHP short thing. Okay, expect and okay, so that's a syntactic sugar on top of what I just shown to you. It combined these things. Actually, I prefer to have them split because this is one thing testing strings, this is one thing testing array. All right, so let's bring up terminal, execute this. Now we see 7 assertions, the test is passing. Now let me show you another example. I'm going to use expect and provide 1, 2, and 3. Then we can again use some expectation methods such as to have count 3, but that's not the main thing. So then I'm going to call sequence on that. And when I call sequence, we have ability to provide callback functions for each value of this array. So I'm going to use fn the arrow function basically right here, and then the value inside is already an instance of expectations API. So in this case, on the value, we can directly call to be integer as an example. So if we save this and we execute that, we're going to see that the test is passing, and we have 11 assertions right now. Why do we have 11? Let's count this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this function is executed 3 times for each element of the array. That's the thing. If I remove one element from this array and re-execute that, what's wrong? Oh, this is what's wrong. We expected to have 3 elements inside, but now we have 2 elements inside. Actually, let's remove this part. Not necessary. Okay, now we have 9 assertions. Now let's return this back into 3, and we are going to have now 10 assertions. We had 11 previously because we had this to have count as well. But the thing is that we have ability to provide multiple callback functions here, and those callback functions will be iterated. So in this case, if we provide 3 callback functions, we can define to be 1. The first callback function, the value inside the first callback function to be 1. The value inside the second callback function to be 2, and the value inside the third callback function to be 3. So if we execute this, all tests are passing. That's because those callback functions are executed sequentially on these elements. All right, I hope that makes sense. Now let's create a user instance, which is going to be new user, and we can provide, for example, first underscore name to be Zura. Okay, I'm gonna leave only first name. We are not actually creating the user in the database, but I want to show you using expect, providing user, and then we can use the method to be instance of and the user class. So in the following way, we can replace this qualifier using import. In the following test, we can test, in the following expectations, we can test if the user is an instance of a specific class. If we execute this, we're going to see that the test is passing. We also have a method expect something as an example. Let's replace this into an array and provide user here to contain only instances of. If we have a list of users providing here, then we can provide user class here. Using the following assertions, we can test, using the following expectations, we can test if the following array only contains instances of the given class. That is also a helpful one. So again, I encourage you to have a look at the expectations API and just read them. So this is my homework to you. Just read what expectations are available. And whenever you need to write a real test, unit test, or some assertion, some feature test, then you know which one you can use. Now, I'm going to create one feature test as well. And let's see a couple of expectations on the feature side as well. PHP artisan make test sample test, but this case it's going to be a feature test. Okay, so inside feature, let's open this. So we are using assertion here to check if the response has the status of 200. We can chain different assertions here. As an example, assert C text Laravel. So we expect that when we open the application, the status code should be 200 and there should be text Laravel. Now let's execute tests, PHP artisan test, and look at this. Where's this feature test? Okay, it has the example test. We should give it proper descriptive name. But the thing is that it is passing 2 assertions, 14 assertions more specifically. So that's a total number of assertions actually. But we have 2 assertions here, and we have a bunch of different assertions here, which I'm not gonna focus right now, but step by step we are going to get familiar all of them. Not all of them, but the most important ones. Now let's write actual unit tests for my service class. But now I'm going to delete again these feature and unit tests, and let's create a new unit test. I'm going to call this PHP artisan make test, and let's call this price calculator test. Let's hit the enter. And now let me show this actually, sorry, I should have created inside a unit folder because we are writing unit tests right now. I'm going to delete this feature test. Now, if we go inside app services and open this price calculator class, it has several methods. So this one is apply percentage discount. We pass the price, we pass the percent, and then we check if the percent and the price doesn't fit in the valid amounts numbers. Then we throw this invalid discount percent exception. Otherwise, we simply apply the given percent as a discount on the given price. Okay, we have second method, apply fixed discount. We give the price and fixed amount, and then we apply this amount as a discount on the given price. We also have added tax. We give the price, we give the tax percent, and we add the tax percent on the following price. And we have this final price where we give the price, we have this discount percent and tax percent as well, and we calculate. First we apply this discount and then we add tax. All right, so we have these four methods, and I want to write now tests for all four methods, unit tests. And remember, unit tests should not use HTTP, should not use any external services, should not use a database. We are testing simply pure logic of a class or a method. Okay, so this is the first test, and let's give it applies percentage discount. Now we're going to create an instance of this price calculator. So price calculator equals new app service price calculator. Okay, perfect. Then we're going to use expect price calculator. Actually, let's call this calculator to make this simpler. Then on that calculator, we're going to call apply percentage discount. We provide the price as an example 100, and let's provide the discount of 20%. So once that discount is applied on the price, then we expect it to be 80. All right, let's bring a terminal and execute PHP artisan test. And look at this, applies percentage discount. The test is failing because that 80.0 is identical to 80. So what we need to do, it returns float number. So we have to provide 80.0 here as well. Now, if we execute this, now we see the test is passing. So that's one example. Actually, we expected integer to be returned, but inside the method, float was returned. So that's one test. Now let's write a second test. And by the way, we have two ways to write the test. One is using this test method. And if we execute this, we see here applies percentage discount. But if we change this into it, that's a syntactic sugar on top of that. So then if we execute this, now we see it applies percentage discount. So that's just syntactic sugar on top of the test method. So if we open this it, we see that it is actually calling test internally. So let's use it here. And I'm going to write second test, it rounds discounted price. Provide a function here. Then again, we have to create calculator equals new app services price calculator. And let's actually replace this into import. So we have this import at the top, then create instances. Okay, now we have the calculator. Now we expect on calculator, apply percent discount. Let's give the price to be 100 and the percent to be something like 12.345. All right. And then the result, we expect it to be 87.66. So why we expect this? Actually, so this 12.345% discounted on 100 means that we have remaining 87.655, right? But because we apply rounding, this is what we are testing. If we go in the price calculator, we see that on that method, we have everything rounded with precision 2. So instead of 87.655, we expect it to be 87.66, just to test that the rounding works successfully. All right. Now, if you bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test, now we see two tests are passing. It rounds discounted price. Now, let's see how we can group similar tests into the same group. We're going to take these two tests, which is related to applying percentage discount. So I'm going to take this and then I'm going to use the method called describe, and I'm going to give it like price calculator dash percentage discount. Okay, so then we provide a callback function here, and we're writing all our tests inside that callback function. I'm going to paste them. We're going to save and execute them. And now we see that this is the group now. Price calculator, percentage discount, it applies percentage discount. And in the same group, we have it rounds discounted price. So we have two tests. And now we can go ahead and write another test, which is for the fixed discount. I'm going to introduce another describe here, price calculator, fixed discount, and let's create several tests. First, let me define those tests. This is also a good practice to define your tests first. So applies fixed discount. So this is the one test we're going to write. Second is going to be it never returns negative price. I don't want it to be skipped. The autocompletion is sometimes really good, but sometimes it is annoying when I want step by step to introduce something. Another test, it throws for negative fixed amount. We need function here. And I think the three tests are kind of enough. So we know that inside this group, we're going to have those three tests. Hey, can you do me a favor and pause this right now? Hit the like button, subscribe if you are not yet, because I'm working on some really interesting videos for you, and then continue the course. Thank you. Now, if we bring up terminal and execute this, we're going to see that these tests don't perform any assertions. So we see this in yellow. This kind of good indicator as well that we don't have those tests implemented, right? So let's start with the first one. It applies fixed discount. We're going to create calculator here. Then on that calculator, we're going to call apply fixed discount with 120, but we're going to wrap this inside expect. And then on that expect, we're going to call the result to be 80.0. So we save this, we execute this, and we see that this test has been passed. We have other two tests where we don't have anything implemented right now. The next one is to test that it never returns a negative price, right? So we're going to create the calculator, then on expect, we are going to call calculator, apply fixed discount. And in this case, I'm going to provide the value to be 50 and the percent to be 100, right? So, and then we expect the result to be 0.00. So we don't expect the result to become negative, even though we applied $100 discount, dollar or 100 amount discount on the 50 price, right? So let's bring up terminal, execute that, and the test is actually failing. Oh, sorry, not expect, to be 0.00. Okay, let's execute this. And now we see that this test is also passing. And the last one, we're going to test that it throws for negative fixed amount. So we create the calculator. Then on that calculator, we are calling expect calculator, apply fixed discount, and we provide -10 to be the discount price. And we expect exception. So there are a couple of ways. So we can use the method to throw. So we expect that it to throw invalid argument exception. That's the one way to do this. We're going to execute this and we see the following error. Well, this is the thing. Yeah, that's a good point. So the test wasn't passed. Instead, we saw an exception. That's because this method throw an exception, and that happened in the main thread where the test was running. So in order to test this, we need this arrow, we need to wrap this inside a function. Now, when we put this inside a function, test will check if it throws an exception and catch it and properly gives us the result. Now we see that it throws for negative fixed amount, the test is passing, so it throws the exception. So if it throws the exception, you should not use in the way like this. Instead, we're going to put this inside a function. Now let's create another group, and I'm going to give this a challenge to you. So we're going to test, let's create the group first, and we're going to test that it adds tax and final price, that it tests the final price as well. Okay, first we need it adds tax to the price. Good. Second is that it rounds tax price. Rounds taxed price. And the third one is it calculates final price with discount and tax. We can provide additional text as well with discount and tax. Now, this is a challenge to you. Please go ahead and implement these 3 unit tests based on this price calculator class. You can get the price calculator source code from the project, and you can find the project link in the video description, and implement these 3 methods and then come back and see my solution. Okay, I hope you made it. Now, let's see how I'm going to do this. First, obviously, we're going to create the calculator. Next, on that calculator, we're going to call method add tax, and we're going to wrap this inside expect. We add 10% tax on top of that, or we can replace this into like 21% as well to have that, not that round number. And then we expect the price to be 121. This is the first test. In the next test, again, we're going to create the calculator. Then we expect to add tax on that calculator. So we take this price to be 100.123, whatever number here, right? Then we add tax percent to be 21%. In order to decide what value we're going to expect, we have to do a little bit of calculation on ourselves as well, right? So let's bring up terminal, and in the calculator, we're going to take this 100.12345. We're going to multiply this on 21, which is a tax percent, and we're going to divide this on 100, and this is going to be the tax amount value, right? Then when we add this 21.025, whatever is this, we're going to plus 100.12345 and 5. So finally, we get 121.149. So if we round this 121.149 into two precision, then we should expect here to be 15, right? So let's execute the test. It rounds tax price. This is correct. And the last one is remaining. The auto-completion gave us wrong value here. So that's why it's kind of annoying sometimes. But we calculated ourselves and we know what we are expecting, that the tax price should be rounded properly. And the final one is to calculate the final price with discount and tax. Again, we're going to create the calculator. Let me do this step by step. Then let me call expect on the calculator to call final price, and let's provide 100 as a final price, not the final, as an initial price. Then we provide 10 here inside the discount percent, and we provide 21 as a tax percent. So we expect the value to be something. So we have to calculate this by ourselves, and then we decide what we expect. So if we open again terminal, a little bit of calculator, so then we take that 100 and we're gonna subtract the discounted price, which is going to be 10%, and so finally we have 90 remaining, right? And then we're gonna add 21% on 90, right? So 90 plus 90 multiplied on 21 divided on 100. So that is 108.9. So finally we expect it to be 108.9. Now we save this and execute PHP artisan test, and let's have a look. Oh, we have semicolon missing here. Not a big deal. Okay, one test was failed. Expect doesn't exist in double again. That should be to be, not expect, but to be. Okay, now all tests are passing. And congratulations, right now we have written a real world scenario of unit tests of our service class. And we have written how many tests? We have 8 tests written in our project, which is pretty cool and not as complex as you might find in real projects, large projects, but this is a good start and good unit tests. This is brand new Laravel React Starter Kit, which we have installed. And it has the welcome page, it has a login page and a register page. And we also have on the login page, forget password page as well. So now we are going to write feature tests and write a test to make sure that the home page, welcome page opens, the login register pages are opening, and like we see the information on those pages, right? So let's open terminal and I'm going to execute PHP artisan make test, and I'm going to call this public pages test. However, we can put this inside a subfolder by providing something, the subfolder name. So we can call this routes dot, or not dot, but slash public pages test. We hit the enter. Now we see this public pages test is created inside routes folder. So we can open this public pages test and we see an example test right here. Let me replace this with it, and that should be shows welcome page. By the way, this is one way how we're going to make request this get, but the second way is to simply use get method, in which case we have to import the get function as well from Pest Laravel. Okay, so you can choose whichever you want. I'm going to stick with this get here. Okay, so this shows the welcome page and makes the status is correct. Let's bring up the terminal and I'm going to execute PHP artisan test, and we're going to see that this feature test is actually passing. Now, let's create another test. It shows the login page. All right. Now, in this case, we're going to make request response equals get login on the login endpoint. We can save this into a response variable, and then on that response variable, we can call some assertions, or another way is to chain several methods. So we get the response, then we can check the status needs to be 200. What else we expect on the home page? Let's open the browser, click on login, and then we expect the login to your account text to be also visible. And that's it. Yeah. So then we can use another assertion like assert C, login to your account. Optionally, we have a lot of assertions here. Assert and assert accepted. Assert accepted basically checks a specific status code. It's a 202 status code. So we don't need to cover all of them, but let's have a look. Assert, those are related to status codes. Assert OK is again the 200 status code. Unauthorized. Assert cookie if the cookie contains specific value. Assert C and assert don't see. So we used assert C and we expect the following text to be displayed. And we can use assert don't see as well, such as such as welcome to Laravel or dashboard. So we don't expect dashboard to be displayed on when we access to the login page. Let's bring up the terminal and execute PHP artisan test, and let's have a look. Log in to your account. This is not visible. So this is the thing. So this is not browser testing. It is making CURL request, getting the HTML, and then inside that HTML, it is searching for the following content. And I expect this is not gonna work as well. And I'm gonna explain why. Okay, yeah, this is not gonna work, and the reason is that we have inertia, Laravel inertia type of application, all right? And the content is rendered dynamically. So if we view the page source, this is what Pest right now sees when we make the following request. This is it. This is inertia page, and we don't see login here. Log in. Do we see? No, we don't see. That's the reason. And we are using the login.tsx file, which is dynamically rendered in the browser. That's why Pest 4's browser testing is absolutely amazing. And using browser testing, we will be able to test all these functionality, like the login and the text is visible and the buttons are working and the redirects are working and everything. To get started with browser testing, we have to install Pest plugin browser as well as Playwright, because internally Pest plugin for version 4 for browser testing is using Playwright. So we're going to copy the following command, bring up terminal, paste this and hit the enter. So at this stage, look at this, it is downloading Chromium browser, and it is going to actually test everything inside the real browser, which is open source version of Chrome. In my case, some of the Playwright dependencies were missing, so I can execute the following command, or I can execute the following commands. Okay, the dependencies have been installed, and if we go right now inside this public pages test, we can replace get with visit. So we use visit to have a look and to open this in the browser. Assert status function doesn't exist after the visit method, so we have to remove this. So we expect login to be displayed, and we expect dashboard text not to be displayed as an example. We can replace this with visit as well. So the thing is that this one was a failing because of the client side rendering. Now let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test. The browser testing needs a little bit more time. Yep, this is not good. So we don't have assert status anymore. Instead, we can replace this assert C. We expect to see Laravel. If we see Laravel, we know this is good, and 200 status code was returned. Let's re-execute PHP artisan test. Now we see that the tests are actually passed. It shows welcome page. It shows the login page as well. So what we can do is call a debug right here, then execute this. And now it opened the browser and it stopped at point of debug. So it checked and saw that the login was existed there, and then it called the debug. So it paused, opened the browser so that we can debug what is happening right here in the following screen. I can zoom in this part. So this is it. Okay, we're going to close that, press any key to continue. If we want to see everything in a headed mode, so we have ability to provide -- headed flag. So the browser opens, test is completed, it's closed, then it's open. So for every test, browser is opened and we see everything in the browser. However, it is fast and we don't actually notice what's going on, but that is browser testing. Of course, it is slightly slower than non-browser testing, the typical testing, which is available in Pest version 3, but the browser testing gives you ability to test everything actually in the browser. Like, we are not able to test if the login page even opens in Laravel React version of the starter kit, but we are able to do this thing using browser-based testing. Now let's write a test to see if login actually works. So we're going to use it tests, or it tests that login works. Okay, so we need to first create the user and then use that user for authentication. User equals new, not new, but the user factory create, and we can provide password here. Password needs to be bcrypt of something like password 123. The user model needs to be imported from app models user. That's perfect. And now we can use that user's email, and the password is 123, to actually type them in the browser. So we're going to use visit right now login. Actually, we can go even step further, and we can do like this: visit on slash, then we're gonna click on the button which is called login. So if we access slash, then we have the following button. So we're clicking on this, and this is something, this can be another test. So we tested that when we access login URL, we see this login text right there, and we don't see dashboard. But another test inside here can be that when we click on slash, and when we visit on slash, then click on login, then we see the login text. And we can also check assert path is /login. So the URL was changed into login. So that's also a good test which shows the login page. That's for showing it, right? So in our case, we can directly visit to login. We know that now login page is opening. So this proves that the login page opens from home page. Now, when we visit login, we can type email to be the user's email address, whatever it is. Email. We can type the password to be password 123. And then we press a login button. Let's make sure that the button has the same text, login right here. And then we check that the path needs to be dashboard, right? So we save this. Let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test. Let's remove this headed. It needs 2-3 seconds. This error basically means that for just created user, two-factor authentication is enabled. And when we entered email and password in the form and hit the press button, it redirected us into the two-factor page. So if we put a debug here and re-execute the same test, it will open debugger. Look at this. So, and this is it. So now it expects us to enter two-factor authentication code, and the test was failed after some time. Okay, so in order to fix that, we have to create the user without two-factor authentication. If you open user factory, right here inside the definition, we have all the fields defined, and we have two-factor secret and two-factor recovery codes and confirmed it. So that means that whenever we create the user, those two-factor fields are set. So we can actually override those fields for that specific user creation. We provided the password, but we can also provide these fields. So this is going to be like this. So we provide null everywhere, and now if we re-execute this test, now the dashboard is visible and the test was passed. So, and just like this, if we want to test the two-factor thing, that's a different story. But right now we tested that if the two-factor is not activated on the user is created and the user is able to visit the login page, enter those information, click on login, and the user is redirected into dashboard. I'm going to remove this debug now. Besides this type and press, let's have a look what other methods are available to interact with elements. So we have click, we have text. This text basically method gets the text of the element which matches the given selector. So it simply returns the text. So finally we're going to get the text right here. This one returns the attribute. Let's have a look. So we have check to check the checkbox with a specific value. We have ability to check radio as well. We have ability to attach a file to the input type file. The press basically is the same as click. We also have possibility to select something in a selector. So In the country selector, we can provide US. If it supports multiple values, we can do this in the following way. We have ability to submit the page. If the page has form inside there, we have ability to get the value. So we have a lot of things basically what we need to interact with the element. So we also have ability to get the current URL of the page, to wait for some time, and this is pretty cool. Also, regarding these debugging tests, we have already seen debug method. Let's have a look at this screenshot method, which has two properties: to take the full page screenshot and to provide the file name as well. So I'm going to open now and let's provide screenshot here. And I'm going to just leave this with default values so we can execute this. It's going to take the screenshot and save it. Okay, the screenshots are typically inside tests, browser, screenshot, and let's click on this, and this is it. So it gave us the screenshot that the login works. Optionally, we can provide a file name, custom file name, or the full page screenshot can be taken as well. Or we also have this screenshot element method as well, and it's gonna take the screenshot of a specific element, not the entire page. We also have ability to open tinker at specific point of the code. If the code is failing at some time because something is not correct in the database, we can open the tinker at that point and observe the database and see what's there. And we covered that we can open this in a headed mode as well if we want so. Now let's have a look at some of the assertions that is available inside browser's API, browser testing API. So we have ability to test if the page title is a specific thing or title contains something. We can check if the checkbox is checked or not. We can see if the radio is selected or not. We can test if the element has a specific attribute or if the attribute is missing. We can see if the button is enabled or not. We can see if the URL is a specific thing or not. So we have a lot of things, basically what you think. We can check how many items basically of a specific selector we have in the DOM. Just have a look and understand what is available here. So we can also check if the screenshot matches previously taken screenshots, which is insane. So that one is like a really good. Now let's test if our application opens this sidebar menu on mobile version. So we're going to open PHP Storm and it tests that mobile menu works. Okay, great. First, what we're going to do is create the user. So I'm going to copy the following part and then we're going to log in into the dashboard as well. So I'm going to copy the following part completely, paste here. So once we are inside the dashboard, we can remove this screenshot part. I don't want this screenshot to be taken. So once we are inside the dashboard already and we checked, then we're going to click on the following element. That element has data slot sidebar trigger. So we're going to select an element based on this. Let's search for press data slot equals sidebar toggle. Cool. So we press on this and then we expect something to be visible, such as we expect platform to be visible, or we can even trust the following text, Laravel starter kit. This is a text, I think. Laravel starter kit to be visible. Visible, assert visible, Laravel starter kit. And finally, let's call debug to see what happens in the browser. Now, we have been authenticated. Actually, my bad. We should execute this on mobile. That's the thing. So we're going to call on, then we're going to call mobile. Now we save and execute that. Now this was executed on mobile, but it does not press on it. So I guess the test is gonna fail. Okay, it was failed because that data slot sidebar toggle press did not work. because this is called sidebar trigger, not sidebar toggle. Let's re-execute that. Now look at this. So this opened and Laravel starter kit text is visible. So probably the test is going to pass. Here we go. Perfect. Now let's write another test, in which case we will be accessing several pages on the website. I'm going to log out from here. We're going to access this home page, login, and register pages as well. And we're going to check that there are no errors in the console. And there are no JavaScript errors and no console logs, basically. So let's write the test. It tests that there are no console logs and errors. Great. So let's write this function. Now we're going to access to several pages in the following way. We use visit, but we're providing array right here. So we access slash, then we access login, then we access register. Okay, 3 pages are enough. So then we can destructure that and take it as home, login, and register. All right, so then individually we can write some assertions on home, login, and register. On home, we can see assert title to be Laravel Starter Kit or whatever is the title for the home page. It is welcome-Laravel. Welcome-Laravel. This should be the title for the home. Let's duplicate these 2 times. For login, there should be login Laravel, login Laravel, and for registration, it should be register-Laravel, register-Laravel. Also, on home as well as on, basically, let me do the following. I'm going to assign this into pages. Then I'm going to destructure them from pages. And then on all pages, I can do the following. Where's the register? Register is missing here. Okay. On all pages, I can call assert no console logs plus assert no JavaScript errors. Let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test. Actually, I want to debug this as well. So I love debugging and seeing what's going on. So we can execute PHP artisan test. Let's see. It is visiting multiple pages. So that's one test, by the way, and we have to remove debug here. We don't want debug here. Okay, so we can execute only that specific test if we provide only here. So we need only this test right now. PHP artisan test. Okay, let's see what's the issue. Oh, semicolon is missing. Okay, let's execute that. Now it opened multiple windows at the same time, and it is checking the console logs internally, and it expects us to press any key, and something was failed. Actually, it was failed in debug mode, but it is passing in the headless mode. If we have a look at the browser testing documentation, we also have ability to configure custom user agent when we are accessing the page. We also have possibility to provide a specific geolocation, to configure local, or to configure the time zone. So all that is possible, and again, I encourage you to have a look at the browser testing documentation because you're going to learn a lot of things there. Right now, we are only running the following tests, which I'm going to uncomment. And I'm going to execute PHP artisan test, but we also have ability to provide -- parallel. This is going to execute our tests in parallel mode, and this is going to significantly speed up the process of testing if you have hundreds of tests in your application. We have several tests in this file, and the file is called public pages test. It's not logical, so I'm going to move some of the tests from here into a separate file. We are going to take this, test that login works, test that mobile menu works as well, and the rest can be left here. So this is for guest users, this as well, and this as well. So I'm going to bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan make test. We can call this auth pages test. We hit the enter, auth pages test. We open that. I'm going to replace this with my tests. And we need to make sure that user is imported. Dash parallel. This is going to execute our tests in parallel mode, and this is going to significantly speed up the process of testing if you have hundreds of tests in your application. We have several tests in this file, and the file is called public pages test. It's not logical, so I'm going to move some of the tests from here into a separate file. We are going to take this, test that login works, test that mobile menu works as well, and the rest can be left here. So this is for guest users, this as well, and this as well. So I'm going to bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan make test. We can call this auth pages test. We hit the enter, auth pages test. We open that. I'm going to replace this with my tests. And we need to make sure that user is imported. If we have specific cases when we want to test databases, this is the lesson for you. So if you want to always refresh the database, drop migrations, reapply them, then you're going to use this refresh database class in your Pest configuration file, which by default is there. If you want your tests to run on a MySQL database, if you have something specific for which SQLite is not enough, then you can create en.testing file and configure the MySQL database from here. Okay. So if we want to create new records, we're going to use user factory create inside our test. If you want to create multiple records, then we can do in the following way. If we want to execute the entire seed file, then we can call this seed in our test. That's just for the information. Now let's see how we can test the model attributes. Let's say we have the user which has first and last, and we provide first and last, and then the user has composed column, which is the combination of first and last, and we write the following thing: expect you full name to be Zura Sekhnishvili in my case. So in the following way, we can test if the attributes match to the specific thing. Another example is to test the relationships. Let's say we have the user model which has a relation to posts model, and we have post model and migration defined in our database. So using factories, we create user which has posts 3. So this is going to create the user with 3 posts. And if everything is set up properly, and this is exactly what we are testing here, then user posts need to have 3 count. So there will be exactly 3 posts for this user. And because we are refreshing the database every time when we execute the test, there will not be any additional posts in the database. And the user and its posts are created right here. Okay, the next thing is to test if the post belongs to a specific user. In this case, we do it in a reverse order. So we create post, but we create this for the user. So the user will also be created. And to test the relation, if it works or not, then from the post, we access user property and check that the user not to be null. Okay, if we want to test the query scopes, let's say we have defined a published scope on the post model, then we create 2 posts. First, we create with published property true. Second, we create with published property false. And when we select all posts with published scope, we expect the count to be 1. And in the following way, we will be able to test any scopes what you have defined for your project. You create records to satisfy the scope criteria and to not satisfy the scope criteria as well. Okay, next, if we want to test the CRUD for a specific model, so we create the product, actually not create, but instead we take the array of this product. So user factory create actually creates that in the database, but user factory make simply returns the model. It doesn't save it into the database. So then we call this product to array to convert this into an associative array, and we call product create to create that in the database. Why we do this? We don't use a directly factory create because we want to test if the fillable properties are set correctly on the product model. So instead of product factory create, we use product create, which is the way we would typically use in our controller, where we get this validated data and we pass this inside create method. So in this case, if some of the fillable properties are not set up on the product model or something is wrong, that product create will not be working, and thus the expect product count to be 1 will fail as well. So in the following way, we take this product which we just created, we perform update for the price, and we then refresh that product. So we reselect that product from the database, and we expect that the new product's price to be 200. And finally, we delete the product, and we expect the product count in the database to be 0. Okay, next let's test soft deletes as well. If we have a post which has deleted at column in the database and we want to test if it's soft deleted properly, we create the post, we call delete on the post, and then we use the following assertion: assert soft deleted. And we provide the table name, and we provided the ID of the post we just deleted. And then assert soft deleted will check that the post exists in the database, that it has this deleted at column set. After which we call product restore, which means the deleted at becomes null again in the database. And then when we reselect this post with the fresh method, we check that deleted at to be null. Okay, perfect. Next is to this is the final thing, to check several assertions in the database. So we can use assert database has or assert database missing, and provide the table name and the parameters based on which we're going to check if there is any user in the database which has email test@example.com, and the second test will check if that there must be orders with cancelled status missing in the database. So this one will pass if user exists with email test@example.com. This one will pass if there are no orders with status cancelled in the database. Finally, I'm going to give you a couple of recommendations. If you are working with a database and testing some models and relations, I recommend to use refresh database, to always start with the clean data and use factories everywhere, and test the behavior such as scopes, relationships, and not eloquent internals. And write small and atomic tests as well. Now, let's talk about hooks, local hooks as well as global hooks, which can be executed once per file or once globally or once per test. If we have a look here, we have two tests, and in both cases, we are creating a user without two-factor authentication. First of all, if we open this two-factor, we have this without two-factor method. So I can take this, I can remove these 3 lines, and I can use the method here. Next, I am going to define before each. Before each is executed before every test in this particular file. So in this case, I'm going to create this user equals, I'm going to cut this out and paste here. So I'm creating a user, assigning into this user, and now I can use this user here. Scroll down below. I can remove this part completely, and I can use this user here as well. Now let's bring terminal and execute PHP artisan test. And we're going to see the out pages test are passing. Perfect. We also have before all. Before all is executed once in this file, and before each is executed for each test file. We can also add after each and after all in the exact same way. However, we also have global hooks. If we open this pest configuration file, we can use pest function here, and then we can add before each. We can also add before all, after each, and after all. And the thing is that before each is executed for every test inside our project. Before all is executed for every test file in our project. After each and after all works in the same way. And if we have a global hook defined here and local hook defined here, first global before each is executed. This one, then local before each. In the same way, before all works. But first, after each, local after each is executed, and then the global one. And in the same way, after all works. First, local after all is executed, then the global one. And those are handy callback functions, hooks, if you want to execute specific code, such as creating a user or deleting a directory after all. As an example, you can delete the directory from the file system. Before all, you can execute a specific artisan command to run migrations or to create some data in the database. So you can do this inside these hooks. Now I'm going to talk about datasets and data providers. So if we want to execute test with a specific dataset, we can use a method called with right here and provide data. And we have different variations how we're going to provide the data. I'm going to provide an array here. Then inside an array, I'm going to provide 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. Another set of numbers like 5, 7, and 12, and we can continue like this, but that's enough, I think. Now the thing is that Pest will take each element right here in the given array, global array, this array. So this will be taken, destructured, and given into this function as 3 variables like A, B, and C. So A is going to be 1, B is going to be 2, C is going to be 3. Then this function will be executed second time for the second element of this array. So what we can do is write simple expect A plus B to be C. Just like this. So let's execute only this test. PHP artisan test. Now look at this. The 2 tests were executed basically in the following function because this is executed 2 times for a different data set. So let me duplicate this. Actually, I'm going to create a new one. So let's say we want to validate multiple emails which we have taken from a file or from a database. All right. So I'm going to use test validates emails. So then we have a function here, and then I'm going to provide a with, pass an array, and then we can take, let's give it some key, like that's going to be anything like email 1. Okay, then we can have an array here. This is going to be zura@example.com. So we can have email 2 as well. And email 2, let's say, is not a valid email. It is like this. So we are providing these 2 elements inside with. Then right here, we're accepting an email. All right. So Pest will take, actually, let's DD what is the email here. So we're going to better understand how it works. So only, we're going to remove this and execute that. And now look at this, exactly as we expect. So Pest is smart enough to take this value when we are expecting right here only one thing, take this value and take its first element and give it as a first variable. So if we have a different elements in the following array, they will be given as second and third variables right here. So after this, we can write a simple filter var, like the basic PHP one. We take the email, filter, validate email, not to be false. Now, if we execute this, we expect it to be failed for something, for email 2, because this is not a valid email. However, if we make this valid email. Then we re-execute this. We're going to see that both are passing. So we also have possibility to define a dataset with a name. As an example, I'm going to use dataset users and provide those two users. Now I can define test has a valid string as an example. Function. We're going to execute the following test with users dataset. And right here, we're going to expect name. That name will be Zura for the first execution, John for the second execution. And then we can write expect name to be string. And we can execute only this test. Actually, the other one was executed, but we can see that it has a valid string Zura and John. So this also works. We can also have inside this data set functions, callback functions. I'm going to define another data set. In this case, that will be numbers and provide an array. But I'm going to define callback functions like fn, arrow functions, and we're taking a random integer, or let's simply use rand from 1 to 10. This is the first one. I have syntax error. Duplicate this, and let's take second one from 10 to 20. So we have defined this data set. Then we use test to test if this has a valid number. We are executing the following test with numbers data set, and we expect each number received right here to be an integer. So I'm going to skip this one and skip this one, and I'm going to execute only this test. Let's execute it. What happened? Now look at this. Has a valid number with the closure. So this is a closure. But the thing is that this is tested to be a valid number, and to show this, I'm going to use dump here, dump number. We save and execute that. And now look at this, 1 and 17. So those are random numbers generated by the following function. Now, let's see an example of snapshot testing and screenshot testing. That's an interesting one. So we have one test which snapshots a homepage. And this works in a very straightforward way. We make requests, we get the response, and then on that response content, we expect to match snapshot. So if we execute this the very first time, we expect the following result. Snapshot created at the following location. There is no previous snapshot to compare with and to test this, but it created snapshot right now when we executed this. And if we go inside test folder .pest snapshots feature snapshot test, we can open this, and here it contains the entire response content what was returned. So this is the current snapshot. Right now this is a Laravel React single page application. That's why this is not a typical HTML server-side response content. Okay, but if you have a typical like a blog or server-side rendered content, then the HTML right here would probably contain like blog posts and so on. So we take this snapshot, and then next time we execute this, and it's gonna take that response content and compare it to the previously made snapshot. And if there is some difference, it's gonna report us. If the snapshot is the same, it is going to simply pass the test. That's a great test to simply check that you mistakenly doesn't change the output content. So right now this is failing because, as I mentioned, this is a more dynamic content, and you can see that here we have some dynamic versions and things like which changes on every refresh basically, and that's why we see a different content. But that test would be ideal to test some server-side rendering pages with great SEO, not the one I'm showing right now. For the one I'm showing right now, we need to use browser testing, which I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, this is also a great way to test API endpoints. So we make the request into our API. Let's say we get the user information, specific single user information by ID or something. Then on the second time, we make the request and we are sure that we don't change anything. We don't remove mistakenly some fields from the resource of the user, or we mistakenly didn't add something there. Now, let's see another example, which is more visual regression testing using screenshots. I'm going to use test here, and let's give it the following description: matches home page screenshot. Okay, now we are not using snapshot as an HTML, but we're going to use screenshot. Okay, I'm going to skip the above test, and I'm going to only execute this one. We are going to call visit here, provide slash, we're accessing the home page, and then we're going to call method assert screenshot matches. Now, if we execute this, we're going to see that it is going to create the snapshot in the following location. Now let's bring up this snapshot and open this matches homepage screenshot, and we can see that this is how that snapshot looks like. All right. So now if we execute the same test again, now we're going to see that the test is passing because we haven't changed anything. So the snapshot was failing, but this one actually was passed. Now let's open welcome.tsx and let's find this text. Let's get started, which by the way is displayed right here. And I'm going to add 111 right here. And we can make this text red as well. Okay, awesome. Text red 500. Okay, let's do like this. Okay, awesome. Now let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test. We hit the enter. Now the test is going to fail, and it also gives us the following suggestion. So if the failing is expected and if the change we made on our welcome.tsx file is intentional, we can execute the same command with --update screenshot, and it is going to take the current version as this stable version. Otherwise, it generated difference, which we can find inside browser, screenshots, image diff view, and this HTML file. If you open this HTML file, this is a typical HTML. And let's open this in the browser. You can take this and open in the browser. And let's click on this slider and look at this. So we have this nice slider view, and here's the difference. Look at this. Let's get started 111 in red. Previously we had let's get started in black. So this is the difference that has been made, and this is pretty cool. Now, if I decide that this one is the stable version and I want to use this one, now I can execute PHP artisan test with --update snapshots. It is going to update snapshots in the file system. The test will not be completed at all. And the next time if I execute PHP artisan test, we're going to see that the test is passed because the latest version is this, what we have currently, and nothing has been changed after this latest version. Test also gives us possibility to group our tests into a specific group and then execute only that group. As an example, we have this snapshot test and out pages test. So what I can do, instead of calling this skip and only, so I'm going to remove both from here. And let's say I want to execute only these two tests. I'm going to assign group to them, and I'm going to call these snapshots. Snapshots here, and snapshots here as well. Actually, I'm going to use snapshots here as well. Now I'm going to bring up terminal, and I'm going to execute PHP artisan test --group equals snapshots. We hit the enter, and now only those two tests will be executed. The first one is snapshot homepage, which was created, and the second is matches homepage screenshot, which was passed. Now, if you execute this second time, both should be passed because the first one, actually, the first one is failing. Yeah, we know why this is failing, because it has dynamic content in a response. But the thing is that we have flexibility to assign groups and then execute based on groups. Actually, we also have ability to assign multiple groups to our tests. So I can provide an array here. Let's say this is snapshots and home as well. And this is snapshots, and we can assign something else such as screenshots. So we can execute tests based on one group or the second group. It's up to you. So if I try to execute, let's say, screenshots, it is going to execute only this test. Actually, we don't need array here. We can directly provide multiple groups, just like this. So let's execute this test, and it only executed the last test, which was passed. We also have ability to filter tests by the class name of the test, or in general by the name of the test. Let me execute PHP artisan test, and I'm going to provide -- filter. Inside filter, I'm going to provide auth pages test. So we're only executing the test which contains auth pages test inside the name of it. And as you can see, only those two tests are executed. However, for both of them, we have skip right here, and both of them are actually skipped. We can also provide filter equals login, and every test that contains a login keyword inside there will be executed. Now, the first one is this, which was skipped, and the second one was it shows a login page from public pages test, which was not actually passed. Also, when we provide skip right here, we can give it a custom condition or custom message when it should be skipped or what message it should have. As a message, we can provide something, custom message, and let's execute that. And here is the custom message which should explain why this was skipped. We also have ability to create a test and mark it as to do as not implemented yet. We have some tests which we plan to implement, but it is not implemented yet, so we give it to do. And when we give it to do, we also have provide to give some custom note. Now we execute that. This doesn't have any login keyword, and we're only executing tests which has a login keyword inside there for login. Let's give it login keyword inside there. Now it is not implemented yet login. We have the custom message as well. We can describe that specific test. It is a to-do, and we can describe what the test actually should do. But because the functionality is not yet done, in some cases, we just know that we will need this test in the future, but we don't have it ready yet because the functionality is not ready yet. Inside the to-do, if we follow, we can find that it has a different parameters as well. So note is one of them, but we can assign the user who is going to actually do this test. Or if the test is specific to an issue, we can provide the issue ID as well. And then we can filter to-dos with a specific assignee or with a specific issue. That's pretty handy. Now I'm going to give you a few examples how you can test your APIs as well, which returns always JSON responses. This repository is from my Laravel API course. There's several hours YouTube video. You can check it out. And the open source, the code is also on my GitHub open source. You can have a look. So if we open this login API test, so we have several things right here. So first, we are setting this throttle key for throttling because we have rate limiting into our API as well. And that throttle key is to take the following email and concatenate it with the IP address. Okay. And before every test is executed, we are clearing the rate limiting from cache. That's what it does. Now we're going to test if user can log in with valid credentials via API. So we create the user. Then we are using this post JSON, sending the request on API/login with email and password, and we expect the status code to be 200, and we are using the following methods: assert JSON. Assert JSON is a prefix. Assert JSON structure to look like this. User should be an associative array, or in JSON it's going to be an object containing ID, name, email. And there should be token as well alongside with the user. And we also expect the actual JSON to contain user with ID this, name this, email this. And this is the user what we just created. Another test, and also we have one more expectation here. Also, we expect the response JSON token not to be empty. After this, we also expect the user to be authenticated. All right, user cannot log in with invalid email via API. We create the user, and then we send the request with a wrong email, but the correct password. We expect the status code to be 422, and we expect inside the JSON to be validation errors on key email. And we expect the user to be guessed. Okay, another test. User cannot log in with invalid password via API. So we create the user, we use now correct email, but the wrong password, and we expect something similar, 222, and assert JSON validation errors, user needs to be guessed. Login requires email field. Now we don't provide email, and we expect there to be validation error on email field. Now we don't provide password, and we expect there to be validation error on password. Now login requires valid email input. So we don't provide actual email, it's an invalid email, and we expect there to be the following validation error. Login is rate limited after too many attempts. This is an interesting one. We create the user, and then we try 5 times login request with wrong password. After this, even if we try with correct password, because this is the 6th attempt, we expect there to be a validation error on email. And login works after rate limit expires. Again, we have the user, we make 5 failed attempts, then we clear this throttle key, and then we make the request with correct password, and we expect the user to be authenticated. And the final one is login endpoint requires guest middleware as well. We create the user, and we are acting as this user with the synctime guard. So we are sending a request as already authenticated user. And the request goes into API login with the correct email, correct password, and we expect assert status to be 302, redirecting. Okay, we have one more. Login response contains correct user data structure. We create the user, we send the request, and this is something we have already tested above, but slightly different way. So we expect the JSON to contain user with the following data, and also we can use these expectations on the response data. We expect the response data user not to have key password and not to have key remember token, because those are sensitive information and we should not return. Now, if we execute PHP artisan test, we are going to see all tests are passing. Now we're going to have a look at a real project and create tests for a real project. This is a Laravel Medium clone which I created for Free Code Camp's Laravel course video. You can check it on Free Code Camp's YouTube channel. And this is the project. So it is a typical Medium clone where we have registration, login. If we are opening this as a guest user, we are seeing several published posts with the like sorted in a specific order. If we authenticate, so as an example, then on my homepage, I see my posts, actually the posts of the users I am following too. And if we click on the post, this is posted by Nuno Maduro, and I am following Nuno Maduro. If I click on this, this is posted by me, and actually I am following myself as well. This is allowed based on the application, and we have ability to unfollow from here, to click on the user's profile page, to go back, to clap the post or unclap it. And if we go back and click on Nuno Maduro, click on here, we also see unfollow button right here as well, and we see a dedicated posts right here for that specific user. Okay, and we have filtering ability as well for articles. And now let's have a look at what tests are available in this project. This is created a year ago before Pest 4 was released, and we have to update this into Pest 4, and then we have to create a real test. So this is a real world scenario. Let's go into test folder, and I'm going to expand this unit test. There's nothing important, so I'm going to delete this example test. Now let's open this feature example test again, something we can delete. We have the profile test and inside authenticated folder. This is interesting. Let's open this authenticated folder and have a look. So it doesn't use browser testing. It is using typical Pest 3 testing with this get in most of the cases. So it simply makes sure that the login screen can be rendered. A pretty basic example. Then it makes sure that user can authenticate using a login screen. It creates the user, then sends the post request on here, then checks the user is authenticated, and the user needs to be redirected into dashboard page. Here we have another example. User cannot authenticate with invalid password. Another one, users can log out. We create the user. We are acting as the just created user. And then we perform logout and we check the user is guest and we should be redirected into slash. Okay, nothing that major, but now let's have a look inside email verification test. This is interesting. So we check that email verification screen can be rendered, and this happens when we create a user as an unverified user. This unverified is a method inside user factory which makes sure that email verified that is null. But our application requires user to be verified. So we are acting as just created user and accessing the page verify email. And if this returns with 200 status code, then the email verification screen can be rendered. Now it's getting more interesting here. Now we're checking here if email can be verified. Those tests, by the way, are coming from a default Laravel installation at the time when I created this project. Okay, so we create unverified user and we are faking events. So we have ability to fake certain things such as events, notifications, mails, and so on. So we are faking events. After this, we are creating temporary signed route in a similar way how it is done when the email verification is sent. So we are using the following route name. We are using the following code to simply add 60 minutes to now to make this link valid for 60 minutes. And then we are taking ID and hash, which will be the hash of user email. And now we have this verification URL. After this, we are acting as just created unverified user and we are accessing that verification URL. After which we expect user to be verified. So event verified should be dispatched. After event verified is dispatched, then we expect the user, and we are calling this fresh, to simply reselect the user from the database. And after this, we expect that user has verified email to be true. And we also expect that user to be redirected into dashboard with verified one because we just accessed this email verification URL. Okay, now let's have a look if email is not verified with invalid link. So here we constructed this verification URL with the wrong email, we access it, and we expect user has verified email to be false. Okay, that's all about email verification test. Now let's see another interesting example inside password confirmation. So I think this is the basic one. So we create the user, we are acting as that user and accessing the password confirmation. That's basic. Where's the one I was looking for? Here we are accessing with the correct password. We are simply confirming the password and we expect the redirect with no errors. And here we simply use a wrong password. Okay, that's not the one I wanted to show to you. Password reset test. This is it. Okay, let's start from here. This is basic one. And this is the notification fake, interesting one. So we reset the password link. We test that the reset password link can be requested. And here we are faking the notifications because when we try to reset password link, we expect an email to be received through notifications. right? So we are faking notification. We are creating the user. We are sending post request into a forgot password with this email, and through this notification class, we test with assert sent to. We test that this notification reset password was sent to the following user. That's interesting. Now, also, reset password screen can be rendered. And this is an interesting one. So we send post request to forgot password. We check that notification was sent to the following user, but after this, from this notification, we get the token. We use that token to access to the following URL, and we check that the following URL returned with 200 status code, which means the notification was sent and we were able to click on that password reset link and it worked. And another example, password can be reset with a valid token. Now, again, we created user, we performed forgot password, we received the notification, and then using that notification token, we performed password change. We send the post request to reset password, we provide the token email and new password. And we expect that session has no errors and we were redirected to the login page. That's pretty interesting one. Also, we have this password update test, which is, I think, basic compared to others. We create the user, acting as the user, accessing the profile page and putting the current password as well as the new password. We expect no errors, redirected into profile page. And we also check that the user's password right now is the same as the new password, plain text, to be like hashed with a specific hash facade. Okay, another one, correct password must be provided to update the password. If we provide the wrong password here, we expect the session has an error on the update password, and this is the field. Okay, and the last one is registration trait. We access so this is the interesting one because this is one is failing because I in the project updated the registration part, and yeah, we're going to fix this. And we have this profile test as well, which doesn't have anything significant. But the thing I wanted to show to you was this notification fake. Okay, we don't have anything interesting here as well. Now, let's bring up terminal and I'm going to execute PHP artisan test. And we're going to see that some of the tests are failing. Those tests are related to profile information can be updated, new user can be registered. So in our website, now the registration, let's access this, registration now has username. By default, the username wasn't there. I haven't touched the test when I developed this project, so username is missing. If we open right now the registration test, right here we're going to provide the username. Let's give it username to be test. Username to be test. Now, if we execute this again, now we don't see error on new user can register anymore. We have error, profile information can be updated. Let's go into profile test and search for this profile information can be updated. We provide the name. We should provide username as well to be test. So we save this. Actually, we have one more error. Let's fix this as well. Email verification status is unchanged when the email address is unchanged. Before we fix this, there are two things to change. First, we're going to change the database configuration, which is used by Pest. And second, we're going to update Pest framework into Pest version 4. Let's open PHP Unit XML. Okay, now look at this. By default, in my project, which is created like about a year ago, this part is commented out, which means that this is using the exact same database I have right now in this project. So as soon as I execute the test, it is working on the same database. So my data is lost right now. And this is kind of annoying because I just created several useful posts. Okay, so first we have to uncomment this. Make sure it is going to run inside memory always. Then let's update into latest version of Pest 4, and then we can work on fixing the test and creating new tests. So if I have a look inside Composer JSON, we have the Pest PHP version 3 point something. Let's change this into 4.1. And we have to update as well the Pest plugin Laravel into 4.0. Okay, we're going to save this. Let's execute Composer update. Pest 4 has been installed, and we're going to fix the following part. We're going to provide username to be test as well. Let's bring up the terminal and execute PHP artisan test. And we see all tests are passing. Now I'm going to install browser testing in my project. Not install browser, but I'm going to install Pest plugin browser as a dev dependency. It's going to download this playwright as well. This was installed, which is great. And now we're going to create new test. And I'm going to execute PHP artisan make test. I'm going to create this inside post folder, and let's call this post test. The test was created. Let's open post test. Here we go. And I'm going to define several tests right here. Let me clear this up. So I'm going to define test that user can create a post. So that's one thing. Let's assign to do to it. Next, we are going to write test to check if the user can view published post. User can view published post. Let's assign to do to it as well. Another one is going to be user cannot edit other users' post. Assign to do to it. Another one is going to be user can update its own post. User can update their post. Okay, awesome. And the last one I'm going to do is to test if user can delete. User can delete their post. Okay, that's enough. Actually, let's add one more thing. On the home page, we display posts for the from the following users. Basically, I am following too. So let's do the last one as a browser test, okay? Which we will be able to debug this in the browser as well. Dashboard shows posts from followed users. Okay, cool. To do. Okay, awesome. Now let me bring up terminal, and I'm going to execute PHP artisan test -- filter to be post test. Post test. Okay, hit the enter. Now we see all to-dos right here. Awesome. Now let's start implementing from the first one. Okay, so we have to create the user, and then we have to try to create new post using that user. And we have to attach the information such as image, title, content, and few other things inside that form. Okay, so I'm not going to do this as a browser test. I'm going to do this as a typical submission test, like it would work in Pest 3 as well. So we're going to start with this acting as. So we're going to act as the authenticated user, but we have to create that user. So user equals user factory create. Let's import this user. Okay, awesome. Now we are acting as this user. Actually, we will need this user in a couple of other tests. So I'm going to define before each, and I'm going to define this user equals user factory create. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to provide this user right here. So I'm acting this user which I just created. Then I'm going to send post request into the following route. The route is going to be post store, and I'm going to send the following information. I'm going to provide the title, which is going to be test post title. Okay, next I'm going to provide content, which is going to be test post content. Let's provide also category ID. Category ID is going to be something. You know what? We can create new category right here, but I'm going to execute this seed command, and it is going to seed several categories inside the database. If we open database seeder, we're going to see that we are creating the following categories in the database when the seed command is executed. So I'm going to execute the seed command before every test. So inside category ID, actually, and whenever I do this, I want to select one category and assign this. So this category equals category, not factory create, but instead category limit 1 first. Okay, now we have the category, and we're going to take this category ID and assign this in the form. Then we have to take image as well. So we have the image, and actually let me define a fake image here. Image equals uploaded file. We're going to call fake. Then we're going to call image to create that fake image, and then optionally we can provide some extensions as well, such as width to be 800, height to be 600. Let me replace this with import. Awesome. So we're going to take this image and assign here, provide here, and finally we have to provide published at. Published at will be now. Okay, so we're making post request on the following URL, and now what do we expect? So we can chain several methods, or we can save a response in a variable, and then we can use this method on the variable. So let me chain the methods. Assert, we expect redirect to happen on dashboard page. So we expect assert redirect. Route is going to be dashboard, and that's it. Okay, when we are redirected on the home page, then we can check in the database if that post is available in the database. So there are two ways actually, or multiple ways to test if the post was actually created. One is that we can check the database. Second is that after this, we navigate into my posts page and we check if the post is there with the same title. We can do this as well. So now let me do the database check. So we're going to call assert database has, and we're checking inside posts table. We're looking for a post which has a title test post title. All right, and that should have user ID. That should have user ID, current user ID, which is authenticated right now, and that should have category ID, the current category what we assigned. So if this is completed, then we know that the test is completed and the post was created with image and everything. Okay, so let's bring up terminal and execute PHP artisan test -- filter post test. Okay, this is still to do, so we have to remove this to do, re-execute the test, and we see that was failed. Post store. It is not in plural form, that is in a singular form. Post dot store. Okay, let's re-execute now. Let's see, post store. I said it is singular. Okay. Now there's an can attempt to read property ID on a null. It seems like we have an issue on category because I did something very stupid. Why didn't you tell me that I was doing this stupid thing? Okay, so first seed, then select create the user, and then select the category. Okay, let's execute this one last time. Okay, and we see that the test is passing. But here's one interesting thing which I'm gonna add into this test. So if we open post.php, which is a model, that model implements hasMedia. hasMedia is a Spatty's package. Where's this hasMedia? It is imported from Spatty Media Library. And the thing is that it automatically converts that uploaded image into different resolutions. If the queues, if we are listening to queues and the queues are running in the background. So we are registering these media conversions. So the Spatty's package will take the image and convert them into preview and large versions. And we also have this media collection, and everything is added inside this media collection. So internally, queues are working. So what we can do is test if queue processing happened as well inside the following test. For this, we have to fake queues. So I'm using this illuminate support facades queue, and then I'm going to call fake on that. And let me replace this with import. And so I'm faking queues, and at the end, when the test is completed, I'm going to use that queue, and I'm going to call assert pushed. Assert pushed means that the job has been pushed, and the job is called perform conversions job, and that perform conversions job is coming from Spatty's Media Library package. So I'm going to import this as well, and now let's test this again. And as you can see, the test was passed. Now, if we go into post, and if we remove this implements media, also remove this interacts with media, now these methods doesn't make any sense. All right, and the job should not be processed, should not be started. If we open terminal right now and test this, now the test was failed. Add media from request. So this is actually failing from a code level, not from the test perspective. If we scroll up, actually, I just want to give you that information. I'm using this inside post controller, right? We take this image and add media from request, and that happens on store. So if I comment out this, then bring up terminal and execute that, now look at this. The expected Spatty Media Library conversions job, perform conversions job, was not pushed. Failed, asserting that false is true. This is exactly what I wanted to show to you. I'm going to revert this. I'm going to also add this interacts with media and implements has media as well. So we can obviously remove this queue thing and test this without that as well, but we're also testing that queues are pushed, or we can create a separate test exclusively for these queues. Okay, now we have the first test ready. The second test is that we can check if the user can view published posts, right? So we're gonna create the function here. Again, we already have the user created, so we don't need to create the user. However, we're gonna create the post. So post equals post factory. Let's import post factory. Let's call create, and we're going to provide user ID, which is going to be this user ID. We're going to provide a category ID, which is going to be this category ID, and we're going to provide published at, which is going to be now. Let's subtract something, sub days 1. Okay, now we have the post, and now we're going to try for the current user to view that post. So this get, we're going to use the following route, post show, providing, we're going to provide two things inside post show. If we open web.php and search for post.show, this accepts two arguments, username and post slug. So we have to provide both. So I'm going to provide username to be this user's username, and we have to provide post, which is going to be this post slug. Okay, awesome. Now I'm going to move this down. Now we send the request, we got the response. Now we can save this into a response variable, and then we can call assert methods on that, or we can chain some methods like assert OK is one method. We can also assert C post title, and we can also assert C post content. So we fetch the post and we expect to see that post information. Okay, awesome. I think we should remove this to do, and we should execute this test, and we see 2 tests are passing. The third one is that user cannot edit other users' post. Let's write this as well. Oops. Let's remove the to do. So we have the user already created, right? But right now we're going to create a new post, and we're going to create a new user. So let me create first owner, post owner user, which is going to be user factory create. User factory create. Okay. Next, I'm going to create a post, and I'm going to create this post. I don't want the full auto-completion. I want only small part to be auto-completed. I don't want too many code to be written at the same time. I want you to follow me. So we're calling this post factory create, and we're going to provide the user ID, which is going to be owner ID. And we're going to provide also category ID as well, which is going to be this category ID. So we have the owner user, we have this user, which is at the top. Let me collapse the other tests. And now we're going to try if this user can edit the post of this owner user. All right, so we're going to use this acting as. By the way, so right here in the following part, we tried to access a post show without the authenticated user. We don't have acting as, which is also not a problem. So we tested if guest users can view posts, which is logical. Okay, we can leave this. So right here, we're acting as this user, and we are trying to access, and get the post information, and we expect assert forbidden. I think this looks good. So we have the owner user, create the post, and then using this user, we act and try to get, okay, let's execute the test, and the test has been passed. Okay, awesome. Now we're going to see if this user can update their own post. Function. Okay. Now, we are going to use again QFake here, because when we attach an image, again, that image is processed. So at the end, we want Q assert pushed, and that's going to be perform conversions job. Okay, now here we are going to create a post. Post equals post factory create, and we have to provide user ID, and we have to provide category ID. Okay, anything else doesn't matter. Then I'm going to create new image right here, which is going to be uploaded file fake image. Let's give it name test JPG. And then we're going to send the request. So we're going to use this acting as this user. Then we're going to use put method to send the request on post update. And we're providing right here post slug. So we try to update. Actually, let's have a look inside web.php, inside post update. This is it. Okay, so just providing post ID or post will be enough. So we can simply provide post here. And inside the data, we're going to provide title, updated title. We're going to provide content to be updated content. We're going to provide category ID, and we're going to provide image. Okay, And once the update is performed, then we can write assert redirect dashboard. We expect the user to be redirected into dashboard, or where is the user actually redirected? I think the user is redirected into my posts page, as I remember. So let's try this. And once that is done, then we need to check in the database. Assert database has posts, and we're going to search this with a new title. This is going to be the post ID, should be the post ID, but the title is interesting. The title needs to be updated title as we provided right here. Okay, if this is done, then the update works. Now let's execute this. User can update their post. Okay, awesome. The next one is user can delete their post. I think this is pretty straightforward. So I'm leaving this to you as a challenge. Implement this right now and then come back and see my solution. Okay, so I hope you made it. In order to delete the post, first we have to create this. So post factory create, we're going to provide the user ID and we're going to provide category ID. Others we don't care. Now we're going to use this acting as this user, and then we're going to use delete on post destroy. So we're sending delete request on post destroy, sending the post, and that's basically it. So once we do this, assert redirect to my post, we expect to be redirected to my post page. Okay, and also we're going to check that the post doesn't exist in the database. So this assert database missing inside posts table, this ID must be missing. So let's execute this. Something was failed. User can delete their post, assert. Okay, so we expected to redirect into my post page, but we were redirected into dashboard. Okay, I don't know why I did this, but we should write a test according to how it is done. So we expect to be redirected on dashboard. Okay, awesome. Now the test is failing. So if at some point I go into post controller and decide that after deleting my record, I want to be redirected into my post page, then my test will fail. Okay, so I'm gonna return this into dashboard. And the final test I want to write as a browser test. So it's gonna be interesting. Let's go into Pest PHP, post test PHP file, and let's write this function here. So here, this is a complex test a little bit compared to others. So on dashboard, we're going to test if the current user sees posts from followed users. All right. So first, I'm going to create 2 users. One is going to be followed user, and second is going to be unfollowed user. Unfollowed user. Oh, why do you have to complete all 10 lines? I don't want that. I want to write step by step. So we have 2 users, followed users and unfollowed users, and we have this user as well. Okay, so then inside this user, this user following, we are going to attach following users ID. Following. So this user now is following this user. All right. So next we are going to create post. Post factory create. We're going to provide the user ID, which is going to be unfollowed users ID. So we are creating the post for unfollowed user. Actually, we have to create 2 posts to be more specific. So let's create first followed user ID. We have to provide the category ID, and we have to provide published underscore add to be in the past. Comma is missing here. Okay, so this is followed post. Followed post. Now we're going to create unfollowed users post. So this is going to be unfollowed user post, unfollowed post. After this, let's use now browser's API, and we're going to visit dashboard. We don't want this absolute, so I'm going to remove this. So we're going to visit dashboard. We're going to, let me think. Okay, so we need to authenticate. We need to authenticate as this user, and only after this we should be able to see a post from this followed user, this post basically. So now let's try to access login page first, and then we have to fill up some information. Like we're going to fill up the this user email, and we are going to fill password, which is hard-coded password inside the user factory. So that's the plain password. After this, we're gonna press on login, and we expect assert path to be slash. So we expect to be redirected on slash. After this, we expect to see followed post title, and we expect assert don't see assert semicolon assert don't see unfollowed post title. So I think that's the complete test, and let's execute this. So, and I'm going to provide --debug to see this. Okay, it was so fast. Okay, let's write debug method here. Now let's execute this without debug. Okay, here we go. So we were redirected into dashboard, and we see the following post, and in the background, press any key to continue, and we see that the test was passed. That is really good. Now let's execute this without debug, and we're going to see 6 tests are passing. Here are new tests. We have a clap test, inside which we test if the user can clap and unclap post, and guest user cannot clap the post. We have similar to test, user can follow and unfollow another user, and guest user cannot follow the user. We have the dashboard integration test as well, which simply checks that on dashboard, it tests the dashboard basically with following and unfollowing. We have the profile image test, public profile test as well, and we have security test. You can find all these tests in the project's repository. The link will be in the video description. Let's review 2 tests which I feel is interesting. So we create the user, we create the category. We can of course put this inside the before each as well. You can do this. So we create the user, we create the category, and then we create the post. Then we are acting as this user, and we're sending post requests to the clap route and passing the post. And we expect this to return with 200 status code, and we expect it to return JSON, which should have claps count equals 1. And in the database, we also expect that inside claps table, there should be a record for the user ID and post ID. After this, we're acting as the same user, sending the same request on the following URL, and we expect the claps count to be 0, and in the database, there should not be any record with claps. So in the exact same way, we are doing following and unfollowing. However, if we try to clap as a guest user and send this clap post request on the clap route, we expect to be redirected on the login page. Now, another interesting one is this dashboard integration test. So we create the user, and we create 2 other users for following, and we create the category as well. So inside the user following, we attach those 2 users. So this user is following these 2 users. So after this, we are creating several posts. All right. Then we take the 5 posts and iterate over those posts, and we are assigning followed user 1 or followed user 2. So we are updating those posts. After this, we're making requests on the dashboard page. We expect it to have a status code 200, and we expect the view on this dashboard page to has posts, and the post count must be more than 0, and the first post should have loaded data for user as well as for media. So we simply check that we see information on the dashboard page and posts are rendered properly. As an idea, I'm going to give you a hint. So we could do something similar, but instead of doing this, so we can do the following. We can access using visit method to the dashboard page, and we can count how many posts we see on the dashboard page, and we can do this using browser's API. Now let's take this project and deploy this on production environment, and we're going to also set up CI/CD pipelines where our running tests command will be inside the deployment phase. And if the tests are failing, our application will not be deployed as well. So let's go into Hostinger H panel, and I have grabbed the following hosting. When you create new account, you're going to see the following screen. So we have to create or migrate website. I'm going to create website, click on next. I'm going to choose this empty PHP HTML website. And now I can grab new domain. Let me search for Laravel testing.io. That domain is available for me. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to click on next. Because I am registering a new domain, I have to enter some of the contact details of me, my personal contact details. So I'm going to choose this and click on finish registration. Until this is being registered, let me introduce my open source package using which we're going to deploy this project to Hostinger's shared hosting. And this really helps us in the deployment phase and just takes away a lot of manual work. So make sure you grab the following code, open your project, paste and hit the enter. We're going to install this as a dev dependency. After this, we're going to configure the following env variables. This is necessary our computer to connect to Hostinger's hosting and make some operations there. And this is necessary our repository to connect to GitHub API and generate the deployment key as well as secret tokens for automatic deployment. So I'm going to get this. Next, I'm going to open .env. And I'm going to paste this at the very bottom. This package is installed. Then let's open Hostinger, and we have to choose the location at this stage and click on next. Now it is going to initialize our hosting for us. Once the hosting is initialized, we can try opening this Laravel testing.io, but we're going to see the following error. That's because the SSL certificate needs to be installed. Even if we try to open this under HTTP, it still is in connecting phase. So it will take some time until the domain is connected. You can check the status of SSL from here if you just type SSL right here. So we have a lot of options from the hosting panel. What I'm going to do is change the PHP version first from this advanced PHP configuration. I'm going to switch into PHP 8.4, click on update. Next, I'm going to click on PHP extensions, and if you want to enable or disable certain extensions, you can do this from here. But from PHP options, we have ability to remove some functions from disable functions to increase memory, max execution time, and so on. I'm going to remove exec from here because exec function is necessary for this open source package to execute certain commands. I'm going to click on save. Next, if we want to use MySQL database, we can search for MySQL here. We can create the MySQL database and configure our project. But I'm going to stick with SQLite for now, and I'm going to open SSH. We have to enable SSH access. By default, it is disabled. So we're going to click on enable here, and it's going to be enabled. Okay, after this, we need to connect to the server using SSH. So we can do this manually, or we can skip connecting manually, and our open source package will be able to connect it. But for this, we have to generate public private keys. If you don't know what is public private keys, I recommend to download PuTTY, then open PuTTY gen in your computer, and with just your mouse movement, you will be able to generate public-private keys. I have more detailed video about the deployment in two ways, with the manual work and with the automated package as well. You can check this video in the description or in the top right corner of the screen. So in this case, I have existing key. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to open PuTTyGen. This is PuTTyGen, and you can click on generate to generate new peer, or you can load an existing one. I have already created the one which is saved under my home directory .ssh folder. So I'm going to click and open this, and this is my public key. So I'm going to copy this entire public key, and right here under SSH keys, click on add SSH key. Okay, my laptop. Now I'm going to click on add record. So finally, we have to take this IP address and put in env file of our project, which is Hostinger SSH host. This is it. Now we're going to grab the username and put this here. We're going to grab the IP, put this here. As for the test folder, not the test folder, but as for the Hostinger site directory, this is going to be the domain name what we gave to our website, Laravel testing.io. Okay, and the final part is to generate GitHub API key. I'm going to go into my GitHub account, click on the profile, settings, then scroll down below, developer settings, personal access tokens, fine-grained tokens, and I'm going to click this generate new token. I'm going to use two-factor authentication from GitHub Mobile. Let's give it proper name, Laravel Medium Clone. I'm going to give the project name to it, and this is the owner, and I'm going to generate this only for the selected repository, and this is going to be Medium Clone, Laravel Medium Clone. Okay, perfect. And we have to assign two permissions. One is the administration, and second is going to be secrets. Administration is necessary to generate deployment key inside our repository, which is this Laravel Medium Clone repository, and we need read and write permission. And secrets is necessary to generate deployment secret keys in the repository, and we also need read and write there. Okay, generate. Now we're going to copy this deployment key and put in our project. Okay, so the package setup is ready. And then if we have a look in the package documentation, we have a single command to do everything. PHP Artisan Hostinger deploy and set up CI/CD, or we have separate commands for deployment, separate to publish the workflow, and separate to set up CI/CD. So I'm going to just execute a single command from here, and let's wait. Now it is trying to connect to the server. Okay, so in my case, it asks me the password, and that's because I have added in Hostinger my Windows public key. So I'm actually on Windows right now, but I also use WSL with Ubuntu, and I have my project inside WSL Ubuntu, and this is the reason. So I have not added my Ubuntu's public key right there. I have public private keys in both Windows and Linux. If I want to add my Linux public key there as well, I'm going to read this ID RSA pub from my home directory, copy this, and I can add second SSH key as well. Windows WSL to Ubuntu. Okay, great. Add record. Now let's clear this up and execute PHP Artisan Hostinger deploy. SSH connection successful. It doesn't ask me the password anymore. Now it's going to start all these processes. It's going to set up SSH keys on the server. It is going to connect to our repository and add deploy key there. First, it's detected that we have something in the following folder, Laravel testing.io. And if we open this right now, we're going to see that this is the Hostinger's default content. Now, there is a single PHP file which renders the following content. So we have two options, replace or cancel. I'm going to replace this. Now it is going to perform the deployment of the application. Now the application has been deployed, and we can already open this in the browser, and we're going to see that our application is there. It's working. We can create an account, we can log in, we can create the posts, everything is going to work. And it also set up right now automatic deployment, and it published the following GitHub workflows Hostinger deploy file. So as I mentioned, the application is deployed. We don't need to do anything, but we need to set up automatic deployment and use our like Pest CI/CD workflows there. Now, if we have a look inside GitHub Workflows Hostinger-deploy YML file, this is by default what's happening here. So it listens to the push on the main branch, because right now on the main branch, and we have 3 jobs. And right now inside the deploy, it's going to perform the deploy even if it is failure. So we're going to remove this failure part. Only deploy will only happen if the success is completed. Now, inside the tests, it is setting up the PHP, executing composer install, generating keys, and right here in the following place, it is running tests. Now let's go into Pest documentation, into continuous integration, which you can find in the sidebar, and we're going to take some of the things. Like we want browser testing, and we have to execute tests with the following comments. So if we scroll down below, we have this browser testing section as well. So I'm going to copy these 3 steps, and I'm going to put this before running tests. Okay, so it is setting up the Node.js, executing npm install, installing Playwright. After this, we have to execute the following comment: vendor bean pest -ci -parallel run. We can call this pest/browser test. And I'm going to remove this continue and on error. And also browser test needs npm assets to be built. So we are gonna write here build assets, npm run build. Okay, so if everything is done correctly, then we have to commit and push this file. Once we push this and open repository into actions tab, we're going to see that these jobs are running tests, building assets, and let's wait for some time. And just like this, the deployment has been completed. All 3 steps are there. And if we refresh our website, we aren't going to see any changes here, but the deployment worked and the tests were run. So we can check this run tests section and see what happened. Build assets, run pest browser tests, expand this, and look at this. Tests were run in parallel. All 39 tests were passed. All right, my friends, that's it for now, and I hope you learned something new. Please leave a like and subscribe. Also, you might want to check out the following course where I'm going to show you how you can build REST APIs using Laravel and deploy them on production environment. That API uses AI features as well. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.